Here's the thing. One of the things that really stands out to me most about this passage is that it is the first teaching that Matthew records for us that Jesus does. In the Gospel of Matthew, this is the first time that Jesus sits before anyone and gives this instruction. It gives us a glimpse of what Jesus will stand for in this world. These 9 blessings help us to understand how Jesus expects us as his followers to live and to be in the world. Now, while they seem to contradict everything that we understand of the world, this truly is how Jesus expects his followers to live. And it's kind of a way of him saying, this is what I am going to show you through my life. If you think about it, aren't these really what the world needs to hear right now? Rather than what we can get because we do them? Think about that. So let's break down a couple of them this morning. One of the things that many people focus on in this very first blessing, blessed are the poor in spirit, is that word poor. But is it really all about that one word? Is it really only just about being poor? And I believe that Jesus wanted for us to hear this in its entirety, not just focus on that one word. He wants us to know that we should be poor in spirit. But what does that really mean? And for us today, it means that we need to recognize that we don't do anything in this life by ourselves. All that we have and all that we are is because of God's blessings upon us. Everything that God has given us to use or created us to do. And so for this beatitude, Jesus is trying to teach the disciples and those gathered around him that in order to inherit the kingdom of heaven, we need to acknowledge and live out the fact that none of who we are or what we are able to do is because we did it on our own. In other words, Jesus expects his followers to be aware that we will never be able to do anything except with the help of God. And when we can acknowledge that, then we will be guaranteed the blessings of the kingdom of heaven. And then he goes on to say, blessed are those who mourn. Now, this second one seems to be fairly straightforward, but I wonder how many of us hear those words, blessed are those who mourn, and think, wait, I don't want to be sad all the time. I mean, can't there be some happiness and still be blessed? And again, I believe that Jesus wants us to absolutely be clear that mourning is not a bad thing. Let me say that again. Mourning is not a bad thing. I mean, how often do you see parents, and maybe your parents did this because I know my father did to me, teach their children that they need to be happy with their life, with their friends, with their family, with their jobs, etc., etc. That we put so much pressure on people to not allow themselves to be angry or to share or shed the tears for those who need our comfort. I know there were many times when I was a kid, if I hurt myself and I was crying, I was told if you don't stop, fill in the blank. Exactly, right? I mean, we teach our children that crying is a sign of weakness. But the point of this part of the Beatitudes is that the blessing we need to have is that we need to have compassion for everyone. No matter how we might feel about a person's situation, we should always show compassion and love towards others. Do I need to give you any examples of a lack of compassion in today's world? The thing is that mourning for those who lack it, and I mean compassion, is what Jesus desires for us to overcome. He wants for us to be that for other people. You see, by having tears to shed, we allow our hearts to open to the plights of others. And then, when we are open to their plights and can see their hurt and their pain, we can offer comfort because we've already received it. Make sense? Just check and make sure you're still awake. Now the next one, blessed are the meek. Again, this seems really straightforward, right? We should be humble and kind. Although, as I thought about this one, I realized that the Greek word for meek has a few other meanings that might be helpful for us today. And so let's try this one on for size. What if this one said, blessed are the gentle and kind? Would that mean something more to us? Inheriting the earth does not seem possible if you are humble, kind, or gentle, right? I mean, how often do we hear in our jobs, you need to prove yourself, right? We need to be able to get ahead in this world. And most people see the traits of being humble and kind as weakness. But to me, they mean strength and courage, because it takes far more strength and courage in today's world to be kind. I mean, you think about it, it takes a lot of courage and strength to walk and not walk like you have the world in your arms, meaning that you own it, that you are the greatest thing on earth. It makes me think of a song that came out a few years ago by Tim McGraw called Always Be Humble and Kind. But to be honest with you all, that is the heart of who we should be as Christians anyway. We should not boast about what we do or why we do them. And we should be showing kindness and gentleness regardless of the reward that we may or may not see here in this life. And as much as I would like to go through the rest of these 9, the other 6, we just do not have time for that this morning. But I do want to spend a moment looking at each of them a little bit. And of the next 4 blessings that Jesus states, each one of them is related once again to how we are to be in this world. In these 4, he gives us a glimpse of what our actions in this world should center around. He says that we need to hunger and thirst for righteousness in this world. Again, that is relating to having enough love to share because we have already received all the mercy that we need. That in our purity, we are expected to be able to share peace with others. See how they all fit together? The moral of these 4 is that we should not be looking to advance ourselves, but rather be looking to make others' lives better, because we have more than enough to share. When we seek to make things right and better for others, we will no longer need to seek for it for them. We receive mercy and grace upon mercy and grace. And through our baptisms, we are all accepted into the family of God. Anybody feel like we've run a marathon so far this morning? But really, that's what life is like, isn't it? It's not a sprint, but rather a marathon. And I wonder at this point how many of you feel more like these Beatitudes can be seen as a blessing rather than the negative way that often people read them. I'm hoping that you are, because to be honest, the last 2 on this list do not feel much like a blessing at all, do they? I mean, let's be honest here. I do not want to think about being persecuted, much less actually facing persecution. But that's where Jesus takes us at the end of this part of his Sermon on the Mount. And as I reflected on all that I've encountered in my life, I certainly have faced enough persecution and being reviled, mostly from family. And so I think that I know what he was trying to get at here. And I'm sure that there's much more to it than what I've experienced. But honestly, I believe that Jesus wants us to understand that none of these things are going to be easy. And he wants us to know that if we do these things, that we are not going to get that bowl full of pitted cherries. If we get a bowl of cherries, we're going to need to expect to see some pits. He wants for us to strive to live out these blessings in our lives and to know that our goal is to do them, but not for recognition. rather for the reward that awaits us for remaining strong, courageous in the face of the world where they are going to give us everything they can and try and hold us back just simply for our faith. He's trying to tell us that no matter what happens in this world, we are always going to receive God's love and mercy and grace and be called children of God because we are faithful and maintained a higher level of commitment to his teachings. Now, one last thing to consider, and this is just the beginning of Jesus' teachings and what he wanted his disciples to hear. It happens on the side of a mountain, not unlike what we hear about Moses when he received the tablets and an important lesson himself. Jesus' most important teachings happen in quiet, solitude moments. Moments where he sits with his disciples, where he can be connected to his disciples, where he can see them, touch them, be a part of their lives. Friends, we've received so much in this life. And so as we leave from this space and this place this morning, we need to remember that we have already received it. When we actually live out these blessings in our lives, showing kindness, being humble, allowing ourselves to feel the mercy and the mourning of others so that we can be compassionate with them, our guaranteed promise and our reward is not here on this earth. It's in the life to come. And that's where we should be focusing our attention. Amen.